I just found out my sister-in-law is up to something very nefarious, and I think I'm gonna tell my brother, 'cause it's just not right for him to believe that he's with some faithful woman when I know what she's been up to.
As a lady who did not have a sister, I always imagined that my older brother's wife and I would be oh so close, and she would either be like the younger or older sister I didn't have, but when the time came, I realized my sister-in-law was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and she caused so many issues in our family. The first time my older brother Dave introduced me to his then fiancée, Courtney, I liked her instantly. Courtney was sweet and friendly, and she was beautiful. By that time, they had only started dating recently, and Dave insisted that he wanted her to meet me since she was, well, not ready to meet our parents yet. In the past, Dave had different types of girlfriends. Good, bad, ugly, but I think I felt more comfortable around Courtney. They were just something different about her that simply made her different. Well, I believed it was the way that she carried herself, but one thing I was certain of was that Courtney was a smart lady. After the first day we met, Courtney and I continued to talk to each other on our mutual social media platforms, but it wasn't all the time. It was more like, just liking Facebook posts, leaving comments on her Instagram, and she would do the same to me. With time, I expected that we would get closer, but our work schedules were always clashing. She worked as a nurse while I worked as a lawyer. And even on the weekends, we were either supposed to hang out with Dave or just us girls. Courtney would not show up. She always came up with different excuses, and in the beginning they sounded genuine, but later I realized she had something else going on. The very first time that I grew suspicious of Courtney was seeing somebody else aside from my brother at a restaurant, and I went to have dinner with a client, and I arrived at the restaurant a couple of minutes before my client, and I was not expecting to see Courtney there. She wore a very exposed bodycon gray gown with her cleavage popping out. And when I asked her if she was waiting for Dave, she said that she was waiting for a friend. Just as we were talking, a man around the same age as she walked in, and they left the restaurant immediately. That did not sit well with me, and I thought of telling Dave about it, but after thinking about it, I waved it off and never mentioned it to Dave. Shortly after the incident at the restaurant, Dave began to complain about Courtney giving him a tough time, and he didn't know what to do. According to him, they had a fight, but he refused to mention what they fought about, and since then, Courtney has become cold. She wasn't taking his calls or returning them, and she was never at home whenever he visited her. He asked me to try to talk to her since he really loved her, and I agreed. Like a good young sister, I tried calling her. But she was not taking my calls either, so I dropped her several voicemails, but she did not respond to any of them. When that happened, I resorted to sending her messages on Facebook and Instagram, but it was still the same thing. So I promised Dave that I would keep trying until I reached her. Honestly, I know I'm not supposed to judge other people based on what I heard about them, but after Dave kept complaining about Courtney, I had a feeling, an unshakable feeling, that something was not right. Everyone knew Dave to be a love-struck puppy whenever he loved somebody, and he would do anything for the women that he loved. From the first time I met Courtney, and she kept talking about how Dave had been taking good care of her, I knew that he was spoiling her silly. And since he refused to tell me what they fought about, somehow I knew it had to do with money. I had a strong feeling that she demanded a ridiculous amount of money from Dave. And when he did not give it to her, she stopped spending the weekend there, did not take his phone calls, and just always pretended to not be at home. After trying over and over to reach her for days, I stopped calling. I was mad at the way that she was treating Dave. I hated that she took advantage of his sweetheart. To make things worse, Dave even told me he went to her place of work to try to see her, but her colleagues kept giving him a series of excuses. About a week after I stopped calling, I get a call from Dave saying that they had reconfirmed, and Courtney wanted to apologize to me in person. Although yes, it was good news, I did not like the sound of it. I could hear her voice in the background, and that evening she was going to spend the night at Dave's place. The next day, when I met her, she was all sweet, even hugged me, and she was all over Dave, and it just didn't feel right. According to Courtney, she had an emotional breakdown and was feeling depressed, so she had to be away from people for a while. That did not make any sense to me, guys, but I couldn't say anything about it because Dave was more concerned that his lover was back. Also, he asked her to move in with him so he could look after her if she had another emotional breakdown, and she joyfully accepted. Now, the problem was that they had only dated for 5 months, and I felt it was just too soon for Dave to ask her to move in with him. I tried to talk to Dave after that, and I told him to at least know her for a year or more before asking her to move in with him, but everyone I said to just fell on deaf ears. Well, they did not live together for another 6 months when Dave proposed to Courtney. Before this time, he had introduced her to my parents, and they loved her. My mother welcomed her with open arms and so much love, and she treated her like a second daughter. There was even a time when we had a little family get-together, and Courtney and I were helping clean up after everyone. While packing the dirty dishes in the kitchen, I was carried away for a moment, and I sat for a minute to respond to my messages since I didn't have time all day. On getting to the kitchen, I overheard Courtney speaking in a low tone on the phone, and she was telling some other person about her day and how she was dying to get out of the house. I pretended to clear my throat and walk in on her, and when I asked her who she was talking to, she looked me in the eyes and said, "No one." She even said she was exhausted from helping around the house since afternoon. I suspected she was lying because she was acting edgy, but I did not press her any further. At the same time, there was a possibility that she was tired since she was talking in a low tone, but I still don't trust her. I didn't want to be the sister who would watch his brother fall inside a pit, so I told Dave to watch Courtney closely for signs of anything suspicious before they tied the knot. With the way things turned out, I'm so sure that he did not take my advice seriously. As soon as Dave proposed to her, they started the wedding plans. They had plans for a small, fancy wedding, and I expected that I would be a part of the wedding planning since, I was family. Dave did not have so much to handle since most of the planning fell on Courtney. She was the one to take care of the event hall, her bridal train, her dress, and so much more, and I was eager to assist. To my greatest surprise, Courtney planned her wedding, and she never invited me, not once to share ideas or ask for my opinion. When I asked her if she did not want me to be part of her planning anymore, she said that I'd never been married, so there's no way I'd know how to plan a wedding. When she said that, I thought it was a joke or she was trying to pull my leg, but it was a direct insult. In fact, her attitude towards me changed from that day on, and she became very cold. The only time she pretended to be nice was when we were together with Dave or my family, and so she suddenly changed and just always talked to me with so much disrespect. I was mad. I told Dave about how his wife-to-be had been treating me, but he never believed me. He would always tell me that Courtney was a calm and peaceful person, so if anything was wrong, then I must have done or said something to her. At the same time, Courtney would pretend like she didn't know what I was talking about, or she would tell Dave that I was acting out of anger because she did not make me a part of the wedding plans. To worsen things, she still played a fast one on me, reported me to my parents. She told them that I've been giving her a tough time and that she was trying very hard to get close to me, but I kept shutting her out and pushing her away. She even lied about asking me to be her maid of honor and said I declined her offer. Though my parents did not react the way that she expected, they weren't happy about what they had heard. They insisted that I had to apologize to Courtney and still be her maid of honor. I tried so hard to explain things to them, and when they refused to believe me, I walked out of them in anger because there was no way I would apologize to Courtney and still be her maid of honor. I knew it was her way of planning to embarrass me in the future, so I didn't fall for it. Fast forward to the wedding. I attended it like a normal guest, and I did not even stay with the rest of the family members. My parents and I were still having issues about Courtney. I was avoiding them like a plague. When my parents saw me at the wedding, they didn't say anything to me, but Courtney decided to create a scene, and at her wedding reception, she thanked my parents for being the best in my family, and then she made a speech about me hating her, giving her a tough time even though she tried her best to be nice and loving to me. She also used the opportunity to play the victim card and lied about me trying to ruin her relationship by saying bad things about her to my brother. At that point, I've had enough of her. The people were already murmuring and turning into my direction, so in anger, I got up from my seat, snatched the microphone from her and yelled at her. Then I walked out. Now that I share this here, I feel like I should not have done that because it showed everybody that Courtney was right. While she wasn't, my anger let her have power over my emotions and I regret it. After the wedding, my parents were so mad at me for ruining my brother's wedding and for humiliating Courtney on her big day. Well, I tried several times to explain it to them, but nobody would listen to me. Same with Dave. After the wedding, we stopped talking, and he banned me from visiting his house until I made up with Courtney. It's been almost a year now, and Dave still thinks I'm the enemy. I managed to make up with my parents a couple months ago, and things are okay between us, but Dave has been stubborn. He still wants me to make up with Courtney, and to be sincere, I don't see myself doing that anytime soon. She was the first to humiliate and lie against me, but for some reason, nobody was addressing that or said anything about it. They're more concerned about what I said to Courtney, and how I disgraced her at the wedding reception. As of now, the only time Dave and I communicate is on social media, and it's mostly a comment or two. If I comment on his poster picture and he responds to it, he responds like he is responding to a stranger. Not only that, my parents have been complaining about Dave too. They said that ever since the wedding, Dave's changed completely. He no longer visits home like he used to, and well, he doesn't take their phone calls, and he stopped sending us support. The same was true of Courtney. She stopped visiting also, and before the wedding, Courtney was always at my parents' house. And I guess that's how she was able to emotionally manipulate my parents. My parents said that even when they invite Dave home, he still doesn't show up. Most times, he won't tell them he's not coming in advance, and after making preparations for him, they'll end up throwing away all the food that they made for him and Courtney. Because my parents' complaints were getting out of hand, I had to reach out to Dave's best friend. We had a meeting. I was so shocked to find out that Dave had been struggling in his marriage, and Courtney turned out to be a controlling kind of woman. His best friend told me she had been manipulating Dave to cut off his family members, including my parents, and so far, Dave doesn't understand the implications of what he's been doing. The next time I met with Dave's best friend, well, Dave was there too. He invited Dave for a drink, but he did not tell him that I would be coming. Immediately Dave saw me, he got angry and walked out. I still don't get it. Why would he still be angry over something that happened a year ago? After Dave left, his best friend told me there was a possibility that Courtney was cheating on Dave, and he had been suspecting her for a while now, but had not been able to prove it. Dave actually confided in him, but he really hoped that he was wrong about his suspicions. Between me and his best friend, we both know that's not true. If Dave suspects that Courtney is having an extramarital affair, chances are she is. The thing is, he's too afraid to confront her because he isn't ready to face the music. I know the relationship between Dave and me is kind of complicated, but I need to, help my brother back. I know he's an adult and he should make decisions for himself, but you all don't understand. Dave is very sweet, soft-hearted. He would do anything to impress his wife, but he's losing his family. And my elderly parents don't understand why their only son has just suddenly changed. Guys, what do I do? Should I confront Dave? Also, I've been feeling really bad since Dave walked out of the bar. Am I the a-hole for yelling at Courtney at her wedding reception? She started it first, and I had to defend myself. If you were in my shoes, you would not sit and watch your new sister-in-law say horrible things about you in your presence and in front of all those people. I know I acted out of impulse, and it's caused my brother to shut me out. I'm very open to your comments and suggestions. Update number 1. Hello everyone, thanks for your comments and suggestions. You're right, this is very complicated, but I can't say it's Dave's fault. I only realized recently that Courtney is a manipulative person, and she was only with Dave because of things that she could get from him. As I mentioned earlier, Dave's the kind of person who wears his heart on his sleeve, and the chances of seeing Courtney fault are very slim. He loves her way too much and literally adores her. Some of you commented that I should go ahead and confront him, and while others said I should go ahead and apologize to Courtney, I didn't really like the second suggestion, but after thinking about it, I had to do it for Dave. I went to his house 2 weeks ago and I apologized to her. What really breaks my heart is the way Courtney treats Dave. She doesn't talk to him with respect, and she yells at him in the slightest provocation. She makes it look like she's doing Dave a favor, and it's a very disgusting sight to witness. Aside from having a sweetheart, I know Dave can be when he gets angry. He was very serious anger issues in the days, and I can understand why he lets Courtney talk to him however she feels. Since our relationship is still a bit rocky, I haven't said anything about Courtney cheating on him. The only thing we talked about was him visiting home, and he promised that he would be seeing my parents this weekend. He also explained that the reason he rarely went to visit our parents was that Courtney never returned home on time on the days that they were, meant to visit. So, he always ended up waiting for her, and at the end of the day, he canceled on my parents. But he has promised that he'll be visiting my parents this weekend with or without Courtney. Speaking of Courtney, we have not spoken to each other since I apologized to her in front of Dave. Between me and her, we both know there's nothing to talk about, and there's no point to pretend to be friends when we aren't. I know Dave loves her so much, and the only reason he can divorce her is if he catches her cheating. I know Dave. He can forgive her if she doesn't do something else, but he can never tolerate cheating. I know that he has some attributes of weakness, but let's be realistic. When it comes to loving their women, not all men are like the Hulk, no matter how tough they claim to be, and Dave is just one of those men. I'm just excited about Dave and I settling our differences, and things will begin to go back to normal. I appreciate you all taking the time to leave your suggestions and comments for me. I can't thank you enough. I really hope Dave does not stand up my parents again this weekend. I'll definitely make an update soon, guys. Thank you. Update number 2. Hello, I'm so happy things worked out this time. So, last weekend Dave came over to my parents' house for dinner alone, and my parents were so excited. When my parents asked after Courtney, he told them that she was working the evening shift. I knew he was lying, but my parents bought it. Not long after we started eating, my parents noticed that there was something sad about him. It was pretty obvious, and I noticed it as well. Dave was smart enough to tell our parents that he had a long day at work, and he continued to cover it up with another lie. After dinner that night, Dave and I had a lengthy conversation. He told me a story of one of my friend's wives who no longer cared about her husband, and how the husband was struggling emotionally, and I played along. I knew he was just referring to himself, and he didn't want to come out plain Jane, so I also gave him indirect answers so he would not suspect that I knew something. While we were talking, he mentioned that he trusted Courtney and knew that she would never cheat on him, but he had been feeling neglected lately. According to him, Courtney no longer performed her wifely duties like she used to, and their intimacy had really dropped. As I expected, he blamed it on his work and her working extra time to earn some money. Deep down, I knew he suspected that something wasn't right, but he chose to believe the otherwise. So, after our conversation that day, I decided to do what one of our fellow members suggested here. He suggested that if I hire a local PI to follow Courtney for a few days, and if she was truly cheating on Dave, we would know. Guys, guess what? I caught Courtney cheating on Dave red-handed. The private investigator I hired has been following Courtney for only 4 days, and he's reached back to me with multiple pictures and videos of Courtney going to different places with one particular man. In fact, the man always waited to pick her up from work, and they would always either go watch a movie, go to a restaurant, or go to a motel. I was very disappointed to see that some of her fellow nurse friends knew who her lover was, but they never told Dave. The PI found out that the guy Courtney was seeing was her ex-boyfriend, and they've been together since their college days. Funnily enough, I recognized him. He was the same guy who came to meet Courtney at the restaurant one time, and I think I shared it on my main story. I was angry that evening that I asked the PI to take me to the place Courtney and her lover were, and it ended up being a local restaurant. When we arrived there, we saw them all cuddled up and feeding each other food. Do you guys believe that when Courtney saw me, she did not even act like she'd seen anyone? She was still there in her lover's arms and continued to feed him despite me. And when I confronted her and told her that I would tell Dave what I've seen, she starts yelling and dared me to say that if I told Dave, she would make sure she took every dime that Dave had through divorce, and she sounded very confident. And my guess is that she did not remember that I was a divorce lawyer. To add to the start, she even attacked me, gave me several bruises on my face, and broke my nose. I'm still thinking of telling Dave because I don't know how he'll react to this. I know I'm supposed to show him all the evidence I've gathered, but what if Dave thinks that I'm just making it up? Things might be even worse this time if he doesn't see eye to eye with me. Please, guys, this is the time I need your advice. What do I do? I really want Dave to leave Courtney, and I don't mind being the horrible sister who ruins his brother's marriage. Update number 3. Hey guys, I thank you all for your suggestions and comments. I know I've kept everybody in the dark for months now, and I apologize for that. So much has happened in the past few months since my update, and it was a lot to handle. Anyways, I'll begin from where I stopped in my last update. After reading your comments, I realized it would be wicked to keep such information from Dave, so I showed everything to him. It was very difficult to accept that his wife had been cheating on him with the same man that she introduced as her cousin. That's right. It turned out that Courtney's lover was not a total stranger to Dave. He had been visiting them even when they were living together before marriage. Dave trusted him. He never questioned their closeness to each other because Courtney told him that they grew up in the same house and were like siblings. To cut the story short, after Dave realized that Courtney had been cheating on him right underneath his nose, he kicked her out of the house. Already, I had started processing the divorce papers because I knew that would be the next step. I wanted Courtney out of Dave's life, and I hated her for using his soft heart. When Dave eventually kicked her out of the home, Courtney came up with a new game plan. She announced that she was 1 month pregnant for Dave, thinking that would change his mind, but it did not. Instead, Dave told her that he would only accept responsibility for the baby if they had a paternity test. As soon as Dave mentioned the paternity test, Courtney kicked against it immediately. She tried every means to convince Dave that he was responsible for the pregnancy, and she even quoted the date they did it, and how it matched her calculations. After going back and forth with Courtney over the paternity test, when she saw that she did not have any more options, she agreed to do it. When the test results came out, guess what? It was not a match, meaning that she was either pregnant with her ex-boyfriend or somebody else. Around the same time divorce procedures began, it was not easy, but I tried my best to ensure Dave did not pay a dime in alimony. Instead, Courtney did all the paying. At that time, she was earning more than Dave, so she had to obey to the law. By the time we were done, the divorce favored Dave, and he had gotten compensation for all that he had to go through in Courtney's hands. Would I be so cruel if I said that I also sued her for assault? And she paid heavily for it. Then refunded every penny I spent on medical bills. As for the baby, she did not keep it. We were a bit surprised to not see a baby bump after several months, and I also learned that her lover ran away after the whole divorce issues began. She had to deal with the mess alone. So, tea time. You ready? 2 weeks ago, I was helping Dave move things out of his apartment when Courtney called. She was crying bitterly, begging Dave even to give her a second chance, claiming that it was the devil that misled her. And she was sorry. She promised to treat him better and accept us as family members, and honestly, I enjoyed listening to her desperation. And after Dave allowed her to talk for a few minutes, he told her to have a nice life. Sweet. I think about 3 days later, she started calling me and my parents, and we all blocked her. Before I blocked her, I ensured I left a very long and nasty text message for her. All I can say is that she's out of our lives for good. As of the moment, Dave's back to himself, although the divorce was hard on him and he's really heartbroken. We're sure that he'll pull through. We're currently supporting him as a family, and hopefully when next he falls in love, he'll take this time and not rush it. Meanwhile, guys, I can't thank you enough for your suggestions. I would not have done all this on my own, so thank you to all the people who were part of this. You're the best.
So OP was trying to tell her older brother not to rush things with Courtney, and it turned out that was some good advice that OP's brother did not listen to at first. Luckily for OP and Dave, they were basically able to get away from this toxic Courtney, and I just want to know your thoughts, your opinions on the story. What would you have done if you were in OP's position and you find out this news about your sister-in-law? How exactly do you go about handling it, guys? Let me know downstairs in our comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, I want to welcome you. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories every single day. If you like today's video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.